Okay.
I think you gave it.
Loud into the mic. Nice and loud.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please take note of the emergency exits on both sides of the room. I need a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next item is the clerk's report. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. All right, we'll approve the minutes of the August business meeting. Be it resolved that the Board of Education accepts the minutes of the business meeting held August 17th, 2021.
I need a motion to accept the minutes as read.
Motion?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Motion carries. At this time, public comment. At this time, the board will recognize any speakers wishing to address the board regarding agenda items only. Okay, we will begin with the presentations and start with our superintendent, Mr. Lars Clemenson.
Do you have the cue going? Good evening. Right. Good evening, everybody. Working from the slides here on the screen and those watching at home and in the audience tonight, I just want to spend a little time. Tonight's a business agenda special meeting at the end of the summer, really focuses on the last piece of hiring that we've been doing. 21 new teachers. We just finished new teacher orientation, a tremendous staff turnover this year. Lots of folks retired and were moved on to other positions, and we had the opportunity to hire a number of great folks that are really mixed bag of new career professionals, experienced professionals coming from other places. And so tonight's agenda will include a number of those personnel items. We're also voting on, or you're voting on the acceptance of the district school safety plan and the district code of conduct. Both of those have been available for public comment for 30 days, and we have not received any public comment in the district clerk's office, but tonight they'll be approved. The school safety plan is then submitted to New York State Police and the State Education Department, and the code of conduct will be electronically sent home to all families, available on our website, and also distributed to kids in their agendas. What's called a plain language summary of the code of conduct basically is the rules of the road. Here are consequences for these code of conduct violations. But we can also print and make available a district code of conduct if somebody requests it. But right now we're in that go green phase still. It's accessible on a lot of different electronic platforms. The other component of tonight's meeting is to approve the reopening plan. So you'll see the resolution under the Board of Education section to approve our reopening plan in accordance with guidelines and protocols that are set forth by or recommended by the CDC, the New York State Department of Health, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the New York State Education Department as well, and the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. Some of those things are recommendations, some of those things are mandates. So I want to talk a little bit about that over the course of the next couple of minutes. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll direct those watching at home and those in the audience to where these resources can be found. So everything that I mention and I talk about, we put on our reopening page as well. So you can see we're in phase 5, what we're calling phase 5. Phase 5 is the continuation of this pandemic and the school district's response to that pandemic. When we were in phase 1 at this time last year, we were this plan was positioned as a responsive and managed opening that was focused on student wellness. So we opened and we kept opening throughout the year. And at this point, as we are in phase 5, this is a responsive and managed operation at this point. So as we look ahead to phase 5, we start with the end in mind. The end in mind is next Thursday, September 9th. All students will be present for in-person instruction every single day. You recall this time last year, we were alternating days. Purple cohort, white cohort for the first 2 weeks, then elementary came on. We weren't getting secondary students back until after the calendar year shifted. Little by little we were, but it wasn't until almost spring break when we had the opportunity to welcome any student who wanted to return for full-time in-person instruction to do that. We're starting the year in that way right now. The whole crux of our reopening strategy is layered mitigation strategies. So the goal of operating every day is risk mitigation. There's no way that we can eliminate risk today. But what we do is we have a number of mitigation strategies, some that are recommended, and again, some that are mandated, that will help schools achieve the priority of in-person education every single day. Our guardrails are right there. The only one that has been added is from our August 17th discussion was the August 27th determination from the Health Commissioner, Dr. Howard Zucker, the New York State Health Department. He made a determination regarding face coverings that have the full force and effect of law and regulation. So that's the only thing that's been added since our conversation on August 17th. So again, this sort of summarizes that for the most part, we are expecting and anticipating a normal resuming of activities. We have our athletic teams on the fields and on the courts right now. Clubs we expect to be back in full force. Transportation for all students. With just a number of small precautions that we need to take in order for those things to happen. When we look at vaccinations, we get some questions about COVID vaccines and where we are in New York State at this time. COVID vaccines are optional. They are at the discretion of the adult in parental supervision of a child who's under 18 years old and their medical professional. We do not have a position on COVID mandates. There is not a COVID vaccine mandate. There is not a COVID vaccine mandate in place. And so we operate there are certain guidelines about quarantining if you're vaccinated or not vaccinated, but beyond that, the school district's position has been, we'll make this available for those who want to take advantage of a COVID vaccine, and we'll put the link out there and make sure everybody knows it's there, and if they want it, they can get it. At this point, from 16 and older, Pfizer vaccine is fully FDA approved. 12 to 15 years old remains in that emergency use authorization. Moderna is an 18-year-old and older vaccine. So when we talk about that for kids, families make that decision. They have to sign parental consent and they take their child. The school district does nothing more than have that link available. The media has reported in the last couple of days that New York State Governor Kathy Hochul intends to put regulations in place with the Department of Health that are related to a vaccine or test mandate for school staff. That's focused just on the adults, not the children. It would be get a vaccine or test weekly if you choose not to get vaccine. That's not yet in place. There's no more details other than that. And so as we have done throughout this entire pandemic, the educational decisions are made by the educators and health decisions are made by the health. So I'm not going to get ahead of that until the Department of Health does the work that it needs to do, and then we figure out what's going to work for us in Hampton Bays. Okay? The anticipated protocols, they haven't changed since we last talked. No masks outside. They are voluntary, so if an individual wants to put a mask on, they're more than welcome to do so. There is a mask mandate for all individuals inside school buildings. So there will be 100% masks worn indoors, with the exception of when eating or playing an instrument, and in those cases, the distance between individuals is doubled, and faculty will be facilitating regular mask breaks throughout the class period. So for 5 minutes, you can go like that, and then the next row can do it, and the next row can do it. So it sort of became common practice. We'll still be utilizing outdoor education space. There's nothing better than fresh air, and so we've pushed resources outside, tables, resources that teachers can use, and we promote that on a nice day when you can do that with your class, go outside, read your book outside, have the lesson outside. We will not have barriers on student desks, with the exception of just a few small locations. So art tables, for example, when kids are not in that 3 feet, there'll be a barrier there as well, or they're facing one another. We will have 3 feet of social distancing at all times between desks. So child to child, the recommended physical distance is 3 feet. Child to adult is 6 feet, and adult to adult is 6 feet. So that's CDC guidelines that are aligned by the New York State Department of Health and the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. We will not be conducting the weekly assurance email, and temperature checks may be done on a randomized but objective basis as kids and staff enter the building. The weekly assurance email will simply click the box if you're not feeling symptomatic. So we're not, the CDC no longer recommends that. We're not sure how valuable that recommendation was, but it still remains important that everybody monitor their symptoms every day. And if they feel like they were a close contact to somebody who had COVID-19, or they suspect themselves to be symptomatic, to stay home. So that self-check still needs to happen. There's just no mechanism to say, I did my self-check. We just want to promote that as part of our normal get up and are we feeling good to go to school today process. If masks are worn properly, so all of these bullet points lead to this one. If masks are worn properly at 3 feet of physical distance, kids will not have to quarantine. And 6 feet for staff, the staff member wouldn't have to quarantine. That's going to drastically reduce the amount of quarantines where we have to send kids and adults home. We had several thousand instances this past year of rolling quarantines, and we're managing remote instruction, kids coming back and kids going out, and household close contact. That's where we anticipate the most quarantine situations will come from this year. Someone else in the household got sick, and therefore they need quarantine because they were probably not in our houses. Our homes were probably not 3 feet and masked, right? We don't anticipate having that large-scale quarantine need for what happens during the day at school. We'll still have hand washing frequently, appropriate hygiene instruction as well, and then folks who are symptomatic should stay home, and if there are pending COVID tests inside the household, everyone in the house should stay home. So don't come to school if mom's waiting for a COVID test or you're waiting for a COVID test. Get the results and then proceed accordingly. Our instructional models are, again, think about the Candyland board, the end in mind. I need to wear contacts. It's hard for glasses wearers, right? In-person learning is the model that is in place and expected to begin next Thursday, September 9th. The hybrid model of instruction is discontinued. It's offline at this point. But remember, when we go back to that slide with the valve, you can open or close the valve based on how circumstances change. All of this, again, remains the September 9th plan. As circumstances change, we can adapt. And I'm saying that in a hopeful way. So our advocacy organizations, the New York State School Board Association, Nassau Suffolk School Board, Suffolk County Superintendents, New York State Council of School Superintendents, are now actively working with our legislative folks up in Albany to find the right endpoint for these things. So while there might be a mask mandate in place that frustrates us, none of us want to wear a mask, if this is what it is, let's start the year that way and then talk about what is the end point. We don't want it universally indefinitely, right? And if something is different in Suffolk County than it is in Erie County, we don't need to be held to the same standard. So those are the conversations that are taking place now, sort of phase 2. Get the year started, here's the measure we need to take. Now, at what point do we responsibly and locally, like hyper-locally, be able to say, okay, we're in a better place, Suffolk County's in a better place than somewhere else, we can now start to amend these things, right? So not universal indefinitely. That's the next phase of our work. Full remote instruction can only be accommodated at this time with medical documentation for students' medical condition. So full remote instruction is not an option. It would need to be supported with medical documentation, and those plans are currently in development on what that would look like. What it will look like will be based on the scope and depth of how many students would medically qualify for that model. So a letter went out to all families. It's on our website as well. Families who believe they would qualify for this should speak to their doctor and then send an email to reopening at HE schools. And that way we would work with the family to figure out what the right instructional plan would be for that child. Non-COVID related absences, they're going to be treated, so that's strep throat, that's not feeling well, chicken pox. It will be treated as it was during the pre-pandemic times. Stay home when you're sick, come back, you'll get the makeup work, maybe mom can pick up the makeup work in the main office, and then you come back and the teacher will get you back on track. Quarantine instruction, however, is a longer period of time, potentially up to 10 days. And so that instruction would be for students who are on a health department required quarantine or isolation due to being infected themselves or a close contact of somebody who is infected with COVID-19. Those plans are in development, but it involves the use of our federal grant funds. Kids at the secondary level, generally speaking, would be able to live stream into the classroom to audit, watch the lesson that's going on. They can if they want, they don't have to. The expectation would be that the child can access the learning and instruction that's taking place. Then that evening, every evening, there will be live synchronous remote office hours. So based on what was learned in the classroom that day, it's global history. That evening, if I need to talk to a teacher, so it's considered extra help, but for an hour every night, there'll be a certified social studies teacher who will be ready to receive a child who's on quarantine instruction, has a question about the notes from that day or the assignment that needs to be done. At the elementary level, K to 6, the model will basically be the same. So 2 live instruction opportunities, one before school, one after school, and then asynchronous work or provided to the child throughout the day. So there's a touch point with the child every single day. That was our model last year in K through 5. Worked very well. Transportation, not much to add here. Buses are being routed at full capacity. They haven't typically run at full capacity in a little while, but families have been made aware of that buses, physical distancing of 3 feet may not be possible. Remember, it's a risk mitigation operation, not a risk elimination operation. So windows will be down, roof hatches will be up, face coverings will be worn by everybody. Families will be encouraged to sit together. Kids are encouraged to sit in the same seat every day. Attendance is taken, and the bus is sanitized and disinfected between each run. We still continue to have challenges related to equipment availability and driver shortages. So if you know anybody who is looking for work, Montauk Bus, our bus partner, is a great place to work. So they should contact Montauk Bus over by Wild by Nature. Cleaning, sanitizing, and ventilation remains the same as our conversation in August. MERV 13 filters in all of our equipment that has a filter. Hand sanitizer and disinfectant available in every classroom. Hand hygiene promoted for all staff and students. Additional soap and water tools. So we had portable sinks with soap and water throughout the spaces as well. Additional PPE is available, masks if a child's breaks or if they don't have one or they forgot one or it got dirty, and face shields for those who are looking for that additional level. It's not or. The mask is a mask and the face shield. So we've had kids and staff have the face shield in addition to their face covering, and we'll have those available as well. If you go to our website, that's the first thing you see, reopening plans. And then when you click that box, that colorful box there, it takes you to the next graphic there, which is a live link to all of the resources that we work from and that we use on a daily basis to build this plan, including the reopening plan. So the reopening plan is a much more in-depth conversation or outline of what I talk to you tonight. It's about 18 pages long. It is 18 pages long and goes through a number of the subtopics, but there's nothing in there that we didn't really cover tonight. I gave you the overview of the big ticket items, the things that people were wanting to know and wanting to understand so they can spend the next week preparing for their kids to go back to school. Reopening at hbschools.us continues to be our email address that goes to a number of us on the leadership team, and then we route the question where it needs to go to get the family the information or the support that they need. So that email should continue to work. When you go onto our website, you'll see the 18-page plan. You'll see these presentations. There's a 3-page frequently asked questions document that we put together based on exactly what it is, frequently asked questions. Easy to read, easy to share. It's in English and Spanish as well. So members, I would take any questions or comments that you have at this time.
I have a question. During recess, are we going to be able to use sports equipment?
Yep, so we will have things out there for kids to play with, balls, hula hoops, jump ropes, things like that. There may be some protocols on how they're used. If you're using that's what you're using today. We're not jumping toys or equipment.
Sanitizing outside, that kind of thing?
Yep, so hand sanitizer available outside. We will be having recess and using lockers, I failed to mention that, in the hallway again. So there may be some specific protocols to how that equipment is used consistently and safely.
Excellent. And are the water filling stations going to be opened, or are we going to keep them closed? Do you know?
It's a good question. I will get back to you.
Okay. Just depending, how much water to send into school, especially in September when it's hot.
Yep.
And they're inside and,
Yep, I will get back to you on the answer there. The bubblers that you go down and drink from.
Those are closed, yes.
Closed.
Yeah.
The filling stations, I would imagine we can make those available. Okay, but I'll confirm.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, members.
Thank you, Mr. Clemenson. Again, we look forward to a very safe and successful new year. Okay. All right, we will now do a consent agenda for finance and operations, items 4A. Are there any questions or discussion?
No.
Okay. I call for a motion to approve items 4A. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. We will now do a consent agenda for personnel, items 5A through 5L. Any comments or questions?
You'll see a number. There are many resolutions here tonight, 167 of them to be. These are our clubs and activities that faculty and staff engage in. We want to get that locked up before the school year started so that we can start quickly with opportunities for kids. Mr. Foster is here. He's one of our personnel resolutions tonight, newest member of our school leadership team, Director of Health, Physical Education, Athletics, and soon-to-be Transportation. Was a Bayman as a PE teacher and coach, was a Bayman as a kid, so full circle. If you go to his office, you'll see his golf picture from when he was a Bayman. So we're happy to have you, Mr. Foster, and thank you for jumping in. A number of other resolutions tonight. Our staff, the almost the end of the staff vacancies. So we have a couple more to fill before kids arrive on Thursday, and our leadership team's off and running to make sure we find the right people for those positions.
Okay, thank you. I call for motion to approve items 5A through 5L.
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. We will now do a consent agenda for Board of Education's items 6A through 6D. Any questions or comments? 6A through 6D?
6D?
6D.
Yep.
Yes.
Motion? Oh, sorry. Second.
No comments?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Dozed off there
Okay.
for a minute.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we will have a public comment for anyone to address the Board of Education on matters of their interest. Please identify yourself and address for the record. Please keep your questions and comments to a reasonable time frame so that all can be heard. Please understand that if questions cannot be answered tonight, we will respond in writing within 1 week.
Okay,
No?
and no live stream.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Motion carries. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.